South African leaders are working around the clock with African diplomatic heads of missions to seek an end to the xenophobic attacks that the country is experiencing. International Relations Minister Maite Nkoana-Mashabane held a consultative meeting with the diplomats in Pretoria. Home Affairs Minister Malusi, Gigaba, State Security Minister Mahlobo, and Dean of the Diplomatic Corps and DRC Ambassador to South Africa Ben Mpoko was also in the meeting. He joins me now in studio to share his thoughts on that meeting and just some of the things that we can do to stop the xenophobia in its tracks. Sir, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us here in Newsroom.
Thank you.
Let's quickly reflect on the meeting this past week. Yourself, very high-profile political leaders, government officials coming together and talking about interventions, ways to stop it, and maybe in many ways also some of the causes.
Yeah, exactly. What came out of the meeting was we went there to interchange, to interact and exchange our views, because some of us have been on the ground. I was in Durban, I visited the victims and so forth and so on. So the purpose of the meeting was to share our views in order, first, to stop the violence, and second, how do we prevent it in the future? We realized that, first of all, when those attacks happened, the government reacted a bit slowly. There was no quick reaction to stop it. So it escalated. It reached a point where from the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, we lost 4 people. 4 people died out of the 7. Secondly, we noticed that there was no intelligence that could have warned the government that these things were going to happen. Thirdly, we realized that we have not learned from the lessons of 2007 and 2008, because this happened before, but we didn't learn the lessons from those experiences so that we can prevent it from happening in the future. So the purpose of the meeting was also to say, okay, where do we go from here? How do we stop this thing? We said, we recognize the fact that there is the notion of Ubuntu in South Africa. But Ubuntu has remained a political slogan. It's not taught at the grassroots.
Yeah.
There's no education at the grassroots to create a level of tolerance, to develop a caring society within the grassroots in South Africa. It's happening at the political level. As I said, a lot of slogans, but no action on the ground. We also thought the community leaders, church leaders, should be involved in educating the mass in terms of making the South Africa a caring society, a welcoming society. Because as you know, during the apartheid, the whole continent mobilized itself to accommodate South Africans. A lot of the leaders, including Oliver Tambo, they were traveling with the African passports because the apartheid government was not issuing them passports. So when South Africa freed itself from apartheid, we all sang the victory. It was like the continent has won. You see, finally we're all free. But this freedom, if we don't stop this, we're going to start losing it. So we recognized it was a sad day for South Africa, but it was also a sad day for SADC and the continent. Because within the SADC region, we are working on an integration process where the boundaries must collapse. We will not have boundaries. In 2018, we're supposed to have one currency throughout the SADC region. The borders are supposed to disappear. But if we don't accept each other, how are we going to integrate the continent?
Let me just interject there very quickly and talk to you. You talk about the continent. We have seen strong reaction from leaders across the continent condemning these attacks. And yet, I think one of the most amazing things is that this past weekend, various representatives of those countries came together and said that, look, even though it's happening in South Africa, and this is in many ways unprecedented after our democracy, that we all need to work together. Today we're seeing the King addressing in Ibiza, more than 10,000 people expected. How is it important now that we in many ways have this positive message to say that, you know what, we are all unified, it has to stop immediately?
That was the final message at the meeting, that we all Africans, we need to live, to stick together. The reason we defeated colonialism, because we had together. The reason we defeated apartheid, because we stuck together. If we're together, we're strong. Divided, we'll collapse. So the final message is, let's stick together. Let's put our heads together to find a solution for the future so we can prevent this. And then we were appealing to our respective governments to make sure there's no retaliation in our respective countries, because it doesn't help to escalate this thing and then you have a reaction, violent reaction from the African countries. We don't want to reach that point. So we have been appealing to our respective government to make sure they calm the population, because we are working together with South African government. We believe, and I believe the South African government has the capacity to deal with this issue. And now that the leadership, including the president himself, had taken the stand to deal with the issue, we will see the end to it in terms of the current violence. But how do we prevent it from happening in the future? That's the main challenge.
Let's share your thoughts on that very, very quickly, because I do think once we've quelled these attacks happening on foreigners all over the country and spreading and stopping and spreading from other parts, how do we make sure that we don't prevent it, that it doesn't flare up again a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now?
Yeah, it's a process of education. We had to start educating the masses that we are one. We're one. We're not, we're one. Secondly, we need to deal with the real issues that are happening like in townships, unemployment and so forth, the criminality and so forth. I'm surprised that it took South Africa 20 years to set up a ministry of small and medium-sized enterprises. I came to this country in '95, and we were able to establish, with the DT at the time, structures like Kula and then incubation program with the CSR, to start teaching the community how to run a business, a small business, so they can survive on their own. But with DTI being so busy, they didn't concentrate on a small and medium-sized businesses. So I'm glad that finally we have a ministry of a department of medium and small-sized enterprises. That's one thing. But as I said earlier, we need a process of education. The church groups, the community leaders, and so forth. Because when you go to the township, you ask somebody, I'm coming from Mali. You say, where is that? Or I'm coming from Gabon. They don't know where Mali or Gabon, They ask you, is that in Central? The ambassador of Senegal at the meeting was saying, when he was visiting some community, he said, I'm from Senegal. They say, oh, is that in Central Europe? You see, so there is a process of education of our masses, so they know that the people are coming from other parts of the continent. They're just your brothers and sisters. And
we are all African.
Exactly.
So we're going to leave it there. Very inspirational words as from the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps and DRC Ambassador to South Africa, Ben Mpoko, joining us and talking about that high-level meeting that he was part of, that was hosted by the International Relations Minister, Maite Nkoana-Mashabane. Okay, let's take a look at your tweets. Please remember to send us your views on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. And it comes, of course, from Babalo, who says, a little too late for the King's Imbizo, maybe. So very quickly, let me get in, just bring you in there very quickly. A lot of people saying it's too late, but we know that every intervention at this stage is helpful.
It's too late for those who have died, those who've been looted. But it's not too late to prevent it from happening again.
Okay, one from